Welcome back to From Roots to Fruits. I'm your host, Arlyne, founder of Roots to Fruits, where we support individuals and business owners to better manage their finances. I am a qualified accountant and I love all subjects around finances. I am one of those people that can go on and on and on about finance, and it's because it really just interests me. So, today we're going to be talking about student loans. It is a subject that affects quite a lot of people in the UK that are graduates, or if you have children that are now going to university, you might resonate with a lot of the issues that we're going to be talking about today. And also, one of the subjects that came up in the summer is when to pay off your student debt. Is it actually beneficial to pay off early? Actually, it depends on which plan you're on, the interest rate, of course, and also how much you borrowed, how much you've got left to pay off. So, yeah, we're going to be discussing different scenarios. I know a lot of you listen on a platform, and I'm going to be showing a few slides on YouTube. So, if you get the opportunity to just jump on and see the slides, please do. That way you can really see like the visual representation, but I will explain everything for those that like to just listen whilst you're doing something else. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so this subject was sparked in the summer after I contributed to an article for the Sunday Times. I shared my story around paying off my debt. I think it was in 11 years, my student loan finance. And I managed to do this because I was, benefiting from the low interest rates since 2008 onwards. So I could pay off my student debt. I was also on a plan where I'd only borrowed, I think tuition fee was around 3,000 and something a year. So it wasn't as much as now what students are actually facing at this stage. So I'm recognizing my privilege as well. So, in the article, I shared my strategy. So, I was actually intentional about paying off my student loan quite quickly. And the reason for this was I did not want it on my record. I was honestly just annoyed looking at my student loan deductions every month on my pay slip. And it just felt like this could be money that could be going into my bank account. I could be using it for something else. I could be investing this. So I really wanted it off my pay slip. It really just annoyed me, which is why I started overpaying. At first, there was one year when I got a bonus, so I just put something towards it, and then also I was fortunate enough to earn a little bit more than I needed. So I started paying off like £50 per month. It's not much. However, it contributed to me like finishing it off quite quickly, and also having a job where that paid quite well meant that those deductions on my pay slip kept on going higher and higher each year. So yeah, that was really great. Yeah, that's how I managed to pay off. And I was also thinking about the business. I'd started Roots to Fruits at that stage. And I was thinking if I'm going to be, an entrepreneur stepping away from a steady paycheck, I need to make sure all my debts are cleared. That included credit card debts, loans, as well as that student loan. So yeah, that was my strategy. And again, I have to be clear that I'm only managed to do this because my loan wasn't as much as a lot of people what they're facing now. Yes, I would like to also address something. Student loans are actually also a form of privilege that we can even get them. A lot of people in the world aren't getting an education because they cannot afford it or they do not have access to it. So the fact that we can even go to higher education, and even though we can't afford it, we can still do this through a scheme like the student loan. So this is a positive thing. We won't take that away. However, the fact that it ends up as something that is on your record for years and years is something that needs to be addressed, especially because older people, people that had an education years ago, they managed to pay off their student debts quite quickly. Actually, in 1998 is when the student loans were actually introduced. That's not that long ago. So we need to actually just assess what's going on now. And this is making it harder for younger people to make certain decisions, maybe to get on a property ladder. It's just making the cost of being an adult now really high. So I think this is one of those subjects that we really need to look into, and we need to be loud about it so the government can do something about this. Okay, let's get into the detail, and then I'm going to share some of the questions that you guys asked. We asked you to send us questions through an email, so it's talktous@rootstofruits.com. If you have any questions, it doesn't have to be about this subject. Please reach out to us so then we can address it in later episodes. Okay, so back to the detail. The types of loans. We've got Plan 1. Plan 1 is for those that started university between 1998 and 2011 with a repayment threshold of £22,000. Interest is tied to RPI or the Bank of England's base rate, whichever is lower. This is for students from September 2012 with a repayment threshold of £27,000, 295, and an interest rate of up to RPI plus 3%. Now, this is important because if you're now tracking the interest rates and how they have been going up and up recently, but we're seeing a downward trend finally. However, it's not as low as what we saw in previous years. We also have Plan 5 for students starting in September 2023 with a 40-year write-off period and interest tied to RPI. We have postgraduate loans for master's and doctorate students with the threshold of £21,000 and an interest rate of RPI plus 3%. From our research, we found out that student loan debt has increased by over 200% in 10 years. That means 1.8 million people in the UK owe at least £50,000. This is crazy. And so, of course, the main reason for this increase is because tuition fees went up in 2012, which then led to the spike up. And as you can see, there's a steady increase up through to 2020 and beyond. And this is not looking like it's going to go down anytime soon, mainly because of the increase in interest rates. So, for 10 years, graduates that were on Plan 1 benefited from really low interest rates, averaging about 1% for 10 years. However, if you were on Plan 2, your average was a lot higher, to about 5%. So, already there's that difference, as well as the amount the loan was for. So you can see in 2022 onwards that interest rates have really spiked up to about 8%, and this is really impacting the amount that people can pay back. One of the top questions that you put through was, do you need to prioritize repaying your student loan? These are the factors that you need to think about. What is the impact on your credit? So, student loans in the UK don't actually impact your credit score. The amount that you repay is actually tied to your income, so not the total debt amount. So this means that if you earn over the threshold, depending on the plan type that you are on, then you'd be paying 9% above that threshold, 9% of your income above that threshold. So, unlike any other debt, if you're not earning above the income threshold, you don't have to repay it. So it can be looked at a little bit like it operates as a tax rather than a traditional loan. Repayments depend on what you earn, not how much you actually owe. And another factor is that after a certain period, 30 or 40 years, depending on the plan, the debt is actually written off. That doesn't happen with traditional other credit cards or loans and other debt. If you have other debt, you should probably focus on anything that has higher interest to actually pay that off first before you pay off your student loan. So if you're thinking about overpaying and repaying your student loan quickly, if you're on plan 5, this table illustrates really nicely, depending on your starting salary, how long it'll actually take you to pay off. And if you overpaid, then it might mean that you're actually paying more than if you didn't overpay at all. So according to this article, if you were on £30,000 and you wanted to make a £10,000 overpayment, then actually you'll end up repaying £10,000 more than if you just left it and you were steady on £30,000 and paying off just the interest. You'd actually be better off. However, if your starting salary is £40,000 and you didn't repay, you'd pay off 70,200. However, if you did the £10,000 overpayment, because of the amount of interest that you would have reduced, you'd only end up paying 58,000. If you are on 50k starting salary, then if you were to overpay by £10,000, it works out to be cheaper. If you're on 75k, again, it works out to be cheaper, 100k cheaper, 150 of course cheaper. So it all depends. It looks like if you're on £40,000, then it doesn't make sense for you to overpay by that £10,000. You're better off waiting until your debt can be written off. We discussed this quite a lot on social media, on Instagram and TikTok, and we also found a content creator who shared that in 2021, he owed £61,586 on all student loans. And he's pleased to announce that 3 years later, in 2024, he's only managed to reduce it. Actually, he increased his loan to £61,757. So, yes, he's been paying £300 per month over the last 3 years, but somehow he actually owes more. And this is mainly to do with the interest rates that he is being charged. Okay, so based on that information, you might decide not to overpay your student loan. I would first focus on other elements of life. So you might think of your other objectives, your other goals, such as saving up for something. Have you built up an emergency fund? So typically you want to have about 3 to 6 months worth of savings. So look into that, as well as maybe investing in, whatever asset that you might be interested in. You might be better off putting that money into something that has a high interest rate return rather than paying off your student loan. So just assess what's actually better for you financially. So I'm going to repeat this. If you've got other debt, maybe credit cards or other loans, actual debt that you need to pay off, please consider tackling that first before you look at paying off your student loan finance. But please make sure that you stay informed. Keep tracking your student loan just so you understand where you're at. As I mentioned, quite a lot of people discovered that their debt has actually increased because of interest rates, or they've found out that they've actually overpaid and paid off more than they thought that they would. So it's really good for you to just review it. Let it motivate you. Do not be demotivated, especially if you find out that it's gone up maybe. So this is really good for you to just stay informed. Let's be loud about the fact that this is a problem as well, so that hopefully the government can do something about it. Stay updated on government policies that might affect interest rates and that will affect your student loan balance. So it's important just to stay informed about what's actually happening with your finances. So this is the part where we give the seeds away. Listen, this shouldn't be overwhelming for you. The idea is to just for you to get informed and just understand what's happening with your finances so you can make better decisions. They are complicated, student loans. It's a form of debt, but not a debt that actually affects you. It is a little bit like a tax because it is paid out based on your income and straight out of your paycheck. The decision to repay early will depend on your income, anything that you might have disposable. It also depends on your goals. As I mentioned earlier, my goals were to just eliminate it because I was starting a business. So I didn't want any form of debt outside of the mortgage that I do have. And also, you need to think about your financial situation as well. What is your priority right now? I encourage you to look at your own circumstances. So, are you better off actually saving or investing or clearing some other form of debt? Just review that, especially if you are in a household or if you have a partner. This is a great subject to discuss. What is their financial situation? And if you are unsure, please reach out to either us. Again, you've got all the access on our website, or you could reach out to other financial wellness coaches, advisors, look into the resources that are available. Also, feel free to call up student loan finance so you can ask them the burning questions that you might have about your particular situation. Financial wellness is about making informed decisions for yourself and for your future, and they need to align with your goals. Whether you decide to repay your loan early or not, the key is to stay educated, plan wisely, and keep moving forward. Please do get in touch with us if you have any questions. We would love to cover different topics. So you can leave a question in the comments or reach out to us at talktous@rootstofruits.com. In our next episode, we will be discussing pensions. So stay tuned and see you then. That is all for us today, guys. Join us next week for some more seeds to sow. And please remember to support us by following and leave a rating on our show on whichever platform you're listening to us from. To those watching on YouTube, please leave a like and a subscribe to our channel. All of your support goes a long way. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, keep shining.